Hey everybody, mel0n here. Welcome back to another video. Today we are taking a look at a new version of a product that Pulsar released a couple years ago. We are talking about the new updated version of the Micro Bungee, which is called the Micro Bungee ES edition. Now, the original Micro Bungee was a very unique twist on a bungee because there hasn't been a lot of developments in terms of the bungee design in quite a while. There have been small changes, but we really haven't seen any kind of revolutionary change. The Micro Bungee aimed to kind of be like that, but it did kind of share some of the limitations that were found on traditional bungees. However, Pulsar is looking to change that with the ES branded version of the Micro Bungee ES. Before we get started, just a quick little disclaimer here. Pulsar did send this unit out for review, so thank you very much to them for sending this out for review. I had a really great time testing it out. And as always, if you are interested in checking out the product, I'll have a link to the product page down below, as well as timestamps if you're interested in a particular topic. All right, let's talk pricing. So the original Micro Bungee that Pulsar released, you can get 3 of them for around, I think it was 12 USD, whereas the Micro Bungee ES is now being sold as a single unit for around $6.95 USD. Of course, that price may vary depending on where you are and what distributors you have, but that's going to be around the price you're looking for here. The unboxing experience is very simple. All you get in the box is the bungee itself with its all different parts. You get an extra strip of adhesive, and that's pretty much it. So again, very simple unboxing experience, but again, it's what you want in this situation. Now, the installation is very simple. All you do is you peel off this little strip of adhesive on the top and you stick it to the bottom of your monitor or whatever you want to stick it to. You could stick it to your desk if you wanted to. That said, though, one of the really big advantages to the ES bungees is that there adds a lot of verticality to your setup. So I would recommend putting on your monitor or putting something above your mouse pad is kind of the ideal spot for it. Again, you can put it somewhere lower, but if you want the best experience, I would highly recommend putting it above your mouse pad in some variety. Now, of course, this being a mountable bungee, one of the biggest possible flaw points is going to be the adhesive quality. Now, I'm very happy to report actually that the 3M adhesive that Pulsar is using here is very, very good. Borderline, maybe even a little too strong, where I'm actually kind of scared to take it off the bottom of my monitor because my monitor is not the strongest monitor and the plastic is a little flimsy, and I'm a little concerned about actually ripping the plastic off with how strong the adhesive is. That said, though, the fact that the adhesive is so strong, there's going to be no instances where you are going to be pulling your monitor or ripping it off of the monitor. In that case, you need to apply a significant amount of force to actually take it off, which is a very nice thing here. And again, it does come with a second piece of adhesive, so if you do change your monitor, you can reapply it. Now, the biggest difference you're going to notice between the original Micro Bungee and the Micro Bungee ES is going to be the range of motion available to you. With the original Micro Bungee, it was kind of a static mounting point, so the only range of motion you had was with the flexibility of the cable wrap. Whereas on the ES edition of the Micro Bungee, you have a 360-degree ball bearing on here, which gives you significantly more range of motion. So the issue that was found on the initial Micro Bungee, where if it was mounted in an area where you didn't have somewhere vertically right above your mouse pad to mount it, you had a lot of issues with cable drag. That issue is completely resolved with this 360 ball bearing, which is a really nice thing to see. And as it does advertise, it does pretty much virtually eliminate all cable drag, which is a huge plus. Another part of this is, why would you pick the Micro Bungee ES over a traditional bungee? So I have a traditional bungee here, and I'm going to kind of show you why there's a big advantage here. As I mentioned before, verticality is going to be the name of the game here. Where a traditional bungee, you do have some verticality, but it's more of designed to be a backwards. It's more of a horizontal kind of advantage, if that makes sense. Whereas the Micro Bungee ES, it gives you a lot more flexibility in terms of the verticality. Now, this verticality is going to be what makes the biggest difference between the cable drag, because on the traditional bungee, the cable, due to the lack of verticality, will kind of bunch up depending on how much slack you give it, which can run into issues. I remember I actually used this bungee when I had the original HyperX Pulsefire Haste, and the cable was so light and had so little tension on it. It was very easy to actually run over the cable with it just because there was such a lack of tension on it. Now, of course, with the ES edition, since the cable is hanging above your mouse pad, not being laid on your mouse pad, it kind of eliminates this issue, of course. Now, there will be some variance to this, of course, depending on the size of your mouse pad and depending on how much slack you're giving your cable. There will be some variance to this, as of course there is. No person's setup is exactly the same, but seeing as most people I've seen nowadays have their monitor on a monitor arm hanging above their mouse pad, that is very traditional setup nowadays. This would be a good fit for pretty much everybody. I really don't see this being a bad fit for pretty much everybody, but of course everyone's situation is slightly different. Now, one small downside I have noticed with the Micro Bungee ES is going to be the cable arm here. Now, while it will be fine for the vast majority of people, there are some small little instances here which I wanted to talk about. Now, if you do want to give your mouse a little more flex, it is very easy on paracord cables or fabric wrap cables just to simply kind of pull it through the bungee with a little bit of friction. It does pull through quite easily. Of course, it does depend on the size. Like my cable here on my old Vaxi Outset AX, it is a very thick cable, so I can't just kind of pull it through naturally. I do actually have to take it off, move the wrapper back by hand, and then reinstall it into the mount. That can be a bit of an issue. However, I did notice as well that plastic cables, while they aren't as super common nowadays as they have in the past, plastic wrap cables do have a lot more friction against the actual silicone wrap here. So if you have a mouse with a plastic cable, or if you have a mouse with a very thick cable like old Vaxi mice or Zowie mice and that kind of thing, you may run into a bit of a difficulty in terms of giving your mouse tiny little amounts of slack just to kind of micro adjust it, which can be a slight drawback. But in the most case, I've tested it with pretty much every single mouse I own, and I haven't had a cable that doesn't fit. So it does fit pretty much everything. Just there is some weird instances in terms of giving it a little additional slack, which is something I wanted to mention regardless. All right, now Now, with that little tidbit out of the way, I will say the overall experience and the in-game feel of the Micro Bungee ES is pretty much game changing. As I said before, there hasn't really been a lot of innovation in terms of bungees in a long time, and the ES version of the Micro Bungee just makes this like a totally different game. And a lot of the issues between wireless and wired mice is everyone's like, oh well, the cable drag affects your performance, which again I think is just kind of a meme to begin with. But I will say that the Micro Bungee ES does make wired mice feel pretty much wireless. I have like my Razer Cobra here, and it is night and day difference between the feeling of my original old bungee and the Micro Bungee ES. It feels completely different. And even in game, even in high dynamic games like Overwatch, and then static games like Valorant and that kind of stuff, I've had zero instances where I felt any cable drag or like that. Overall, the experience has been pretty much flawless. Now, of course, this will depend on your setup and how you have your monitor arm set up and how you mount the thing. Of course, there will be some variances to this, and your centimeter per 60, your mouse pad size, all these will affect your your experience with this to a degree. But I will say, in my experience, playing 45 centimeter and running pretty average size pads, I've had a pretty much flawless experience here, and I really, really enjoy this product. So it will be receiving the mel0n seal of approval. It is a really cool product. I highly recommend you check it out. And again, given the price, it's so cheap, it's almost a no-brainer not to try it. But again, thank you very much to Pulsar for sending us out for a review. I greatly appreciate it. And if you want to learn more about the product, I will have the product link down below. Thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.